Today's vivid dream is going to be about a woman named Samantha, her childhood and growing up, and a dream she's been reoccurring about her 30th birthday that's going to actually come true on her 30th birthday, or so she think. But what happens on her 31st birthday becomes shocking. The plot twist to this story is very, very good. And if you are into these type of stories, please smash the like button and subscribe to my channel, as I'm new to telling these, so it really helps my channel. Alright y'all, let's get into this vivid dream. Growing up, when Samantha was only like 7 or 8 years old, Samantha used to always play around, have friends, and she was pretty normal when it comes to regular life stuff and going to school and, you know, about having good grades, and always was good to her parents, like never had no issues, was never troubled or anything. But Samantha did used to always have this dream at night that every night she had this dream and it showed her 30th birthday and she's an adult in her dream, and you know, she's like older, so she's drinking at this party and, you know, having fun. But for some reason at the end of this dream she would always collapse and die on the floor on her 30th birthday. So by the time Samantha turned 10 years old, she actually gotten to the point where now she had to start taking therapy and stuff, because this dream has entaked her mind so much, like, that she just kept thinking, like, now it's true. When I turn 30, I'm only gonna live to be 30, and start saying negative things and just, you know, real negative about it now. So she went to therapy and, you know, different doctor's appointments and stuff. But don't get me wrong, she still was normal and stuff. She still did her normal thing at 10 and even 12, 14, 16. But here it goes years later, and now she's in her 20s and she's 27 years old. And yet she's still having a dream, but now it's a lot more details in her dream. Like, as she got older, it's like she understood exactly how she was going to die on this 30th birthday. Here's a recap of what doctors say and her husband says about what happens in her dream on her 30th birthday. According to her, Samantha said that when she go to sleep, she will wake up, and in her dream, she's really still asleep, but she's woke, so it feels like she's woke in real life. She'd go downstairs and she's partying, and it's her 30th birthday. They would have a cheers for something, and then after she had a cheers for something, she would get kind of drunk and we're like, you know, time for her like to go upstairs. So she said she'd go upstairs to get her mind together, and as she's going up the steps, all she could remember hearing was a popping sound. Then she said she could remember seeing some type of fire and maybe smoke or something, and then she said, and then after that, all she can remember is being upstairs, and she's walking towards her bedroom, she's drunk, passes out on the floor, never to wake up again. And then after that, she wakes up in real life. Ultimately, after a few comforting words for David, you know, because she knew her birthday was the next day now, and she's you know, confused, calling her therapist and all this other stuff now because she's so nervous, because now years came past and, you know, it's the day of her dream. So she don't know whether she should go to sleep, because if she go to sleep, she like, what if my dream happens and I don't wake up? But then, you know, what if I do wake up and then my dream happens and everything in that whole day plays out like my dream and I die at the end of today? And she's like, I just don't want to go to sleep because, you know, I'm afraid. But David gave her some more confident words and stuff, and ultimately she would go to sleep. The next day she'll wake up, so that's a good thing. She's feel comfort now, and then David's sitting there hugging her, and he let her know it's gonna be fine, everything's gonna go perfect. And now later on that evening they will have this party, and predominantly nothing in her dream happens. Party goes good, and she's happy, she's excited. That day goes past. Now her birthday is now past, so she's out of this trend, but she's still having that dream. But she's like, oh, you know, she's kind of bypassing the dream now, because she's like, I'm good. She's happy to know that she lived past her 30th birthday, and she's so excited. So eventually they go ahead and have a new addition to the family. So now they go ahead and have the newborn baby and stuff, and then the baby turns, you know, the baby gets older and stuff. Of course, months go past and stuff, and now it's approaching her 31st birthday, And for her 31st birthday, they was going to redo their vows and, you know, kind of have a get together or something like that, you know, to make it fun. So the 31st birthday comes around, and it's the day of the 31st birthday. She's not scared or anything. She gets up and she's all happy and she's talking and, you know, going on with a very good day. And then all of a sudden, you be shocked when she finds out, like, oh, everybody's coming over and we gonna have a good time, and they all can see the baby and, you know, just see how big he's gotten. And she's just so optimistic about her day, is where I'm getting at. But the party will go on and all this stuff, and you'll see them cheers up their drinks, and she's having fun during the party, and then you'll see them bring out a cake and stuff because it's her birthday, and they lighting the candles and all that type of stuff, you know, just a regular good fun birthday type thing. And she's getting drunk and stuff, and she go upstairs and she starts walking the steps, and meanwhile, while she's going upstairs because she done got drunk, David is talking to one of the uncles of hers in the family, and he was like, he said, I'm so glad, man, that she met you, because it's been a really rough year it's been rough years for her, should I say. And you know, she's been going through a struggle, and David was playing, yeah, I know, you know, but we worked through it, and I'm just glad it's really over with. And then the uncle would say, yeah, because she always say in her dream she died today. And he said, no, that was last year. And he's like, the uncle said, what do you mean? Today is her 30th birthday. And then he said, no, she's turning 31 today. And he said, no, when she was young, her parents got it all mixed up. So when he said that, then the husband, it all clicked on him. He looked back, he seen candles. That was the fire that she had saw in a dream. Then all of a sudden, the popping sound. The buddies over there shook up champagne and popped the champagne open. And it was the popping sound. Then all of a sudden, he started hearing a fire alarm go off, and he'll look over and see that the oven was smoking, and there was somebody with a pillow. That was the smoke she been seeing in her dream. And right there, he knew it. This ain't her 31st birthday. This is her 30th birthday. So he would hurry up and rush up the steps. But when he ran up the steps, and he looked in the room, she's on the floor, and it's too late. Samantha was dead. Later on, they would ultimately say she died of a heart attack. Something shocked her. So since she's dead, no one really knows what it is that shocked her or what it is that made her catch the heart attack or what it was, but people can assume, or at least I can assume it, and if anybody agrees with me, drop a comment, because we all can assume one thing. Samantha must have heard everything and seen everything that David seen. The pop the champagne, she must have heard the popping sound. The smoke from the oven, she must have smelled the smoke and heard the smoke alarm while they was trying to put it out with the pillow. Everything that David heard and all the pieces he put together, I'm assuming she did too. And that must have scared her, which caused her to have a heart attack and fall on the front floor and die, just like her dream. This vivid dream is about Tyler. Tyler will have a dream about a pawn shop robbery that'll take place because he was in there trying to get an item back that he had pawned days earlier. But when he wake up the next day after his dream, the events that occurred throughout his day is shocking. Tyler was a young, working hard man. He'd go to college, and he worked at a little grocery store. Nothing spectacular, so he really struggled with paying for school and rent and housing and stuff. So he was good, but he wasn't good. So one year, Tyler would get into a very, very bad bind where he can't pay for it, and he knows they're going to end up putting him out of the school. So he took his watch and he went to the pawn shop to pawn it to get the money he needed, just to get him by until he'd get paid again so he could pay for the school, and that way he wouldn't get kicked out. Tyler will go in the pawn shop, give the guy the watch, and then the guy will go ahead and appraise it and stuff, and he'll give him this appraisal, that wasn't worth much, but Tyler needed the money, and he knew Tyler needed the money, so Tyler went on ahead and did it. He said, "Thank you for the $800, and I'll be back next week to pick up my watch." And he said, "Because that watch means a lot to me." So Tyler will take the money, he'll get back in the car, and then he'll go back home, and he'll go ahead and pay his school, and then he'll take care of all his bills and stuff. Gets tired and is late, and this is like a lot going on in his day, so he's already stressed out, he's fatigued, so he's like, you know what, I'm just going to put things down and I'm going to take a nap. When he went to sleep, he slept for about 2 hours before he popped up out of his sleep because he just felt like something was wrong. So he stood up for a while, and later on that night, he finally got his thoughts together and stuff, and then he went back to sleep. When he went to sleep, he had this dream. In this dream, Tom would say he'll get up, he'll get dressed. It's the day he's supposed to go get his item back. He'll go to the pawn shop in his dream, and he'll go inside and he'll go to the counter, and somewhere along the line, the guy gives him some reason where he doesn't have the watch anymore. Once Tyler heard that, Tyler would kind of get upset, and he'd say, "Look, I know it's back there," in his dream now. He said, "I know it's back there, and I need it. I need it back." He said, "Here's your $800 back. We made a deal." And the pawn shop guy said, "I don't have it. I just sold it yesterday, and it's first come, first serve. You had got it back before that." He said, "But you made a promise, and it's on paper that you're not supposed to sell my item." He said, "I understand, but somewhere along the line something got mixed up, but I don't have it anymore." So he said, "You know what? I'm not going to get into this. I'll be back." And right as he was saying that, some guy will bust through the door in his dream with a gun, shoots it all around off in the air, and then he'll point the gun at Taylor and the guy that's working behind the counter, and he'll say, "Give me all your money. Give me everything you got." And in the dream, I guess Taylor somehow played hero out of nowhere, which he got some extra boost of energy or something that came out of him. Not sure what it was, but he said he knew it was a shotgun on the opposite side of the counter where the guy was at, and he wasn't sure if it was loaded, but he just said he had to do something. And as he was standing facing the guy at the counter, and the guy was behind Taylor with the gun pointed at the register, he would just reach over the counter, grab the shotgun, turn around and point it at the guy that's trying to rob the place and say, "Shh." And then the guy gonna say, "That thing probably ain't even loaded." And all Taylor remembers saying is 2-1. Chances is it is, chances is it's not. He said, "You want to take that gamble?" And then he gave him a look. He just looked at him, and the guy just took the gun, dropped it, backed away, and just ran out the store. At that point, he would turn back around and face the gun towards the owner and say, "I know you got my watch." And then the owner would look at him, and the owner says, "I'm really sorry, I don't have it." He said, "Yes, you do." And then he'd wake up. Days would go past, and after days go past, it's actually his payday. So he gets up in the morning, and he's been having that same dream all week, of course. And he look at his cash, and he's like, "Oh, boom, my direct deposit hit. Let me go to the pawn shop, get my watch back, and pay this guy, and go on my day, and I'm glad everything back in line." So he asked his friend, can he take him up to the pawn shop? And it's the first time he tell his friend about everything that occurred in his dream. And his friend was just like, "Wow, like that sounds crazy, man. That's a weird dream." He's like, "Yeah, but I swear that was the same car." But anyways, red flags to drive on, and then, nothing. He started paying attention around him and stuff, and just kind of like cruising, talking, just regular vibes. But when he got to the pawn shop, he would walk inside of the pawn shop, and then a lot of his dreams started to come back to reality. Because right as he walked in, you can see same guy behind the counter that was in his dream, which is the same guy he turned it into. So of course, same person at the register. And then he walks in, and he started having flashbacks of his dreams. The shelves and stuff that was in the store in his dreams had moved, and just everything was kind of lined up as his dream. And then when he got up to the counter, he said, "Yeah, here's the $800, and I would like to get my watch back." And the guy at the counter says, sorry, man. Sold it earlier. I don't have it. Just like the dream. Tyler would get mad and he'd say, no. You got my ring and I know it's back there. Then Tyler would start having a deja vu moment because he remembers saying that in his dream. So once he see the guy passes the window, Tyler started like, I think everything in my dream is starting to come true. He said, he looked back at the guy and said, I gotta play this out. He said, I know what to do already. Maybe it was a sign. So he followed his dream. And he looked at the guy and says, I know you got my watch. And the guy says, no, I sold it earlier. He said, we had a deal. I know it's back there. It's in a safe, in a box. And he says, no, I don't have it. It's gone. Look, don't make me get mad. You guys are gonna have to. I'm gonna have to kick you out of the store. Call law enforcement. And as he's saying that, someone says, "Ching!" And the guy comes in and he barges in, kicks the door open, shoots the gun in the air just like in a dream. Points the gun at the rest of the guy. Points the gun at Tyler. Says, "Give it up. Give me everything you got. I know you got stuff back there. Give me everything you got." Now here lies a big decision for Taylor in this part because now we're talking about in real life. In his dream, there was a shotgun behind the counter. He reached over the counter and he turned around and faced towards the guy and he pointed the gun at him and he said, but in this round's reality, it's that gun just like his dream on the other side of that counter. Very not, possibly not, very possibly so. But at this point, it's a decision to make. Is he going to finish playing out the dream or is he going to stay in his lane? He decides to take his chances. He's facing the counter. The guy behind him with the gun, pointing it at the register guy, and then pointing at the back of his head. And Reggie pointing at the register guy. He takes the gun right off the back of his head, pointing at the register guy again. And Taylor makes his move. He reaches over the counter, and it was there. He reaches over the counter, grabs the shotgun just like his dream, turns around, loads the shotgun, pointing at the guy, and tell the guy, "You don't want to do this." And then the guy says, just like the dream, "That thing probably ain't even loaded." And he go, 2-1. 2-1 it is. Do you really want to try this? And just like the dream, the guy says, and he kind of holds his gun up in the air, slowly creeping back, and then he turns around and he runs out. Then he runs out of the store, and then at that point, he'll take the gun, he'll do a full turn around, and point right back at the register guy and says, "You want to take this chance? I know you got my stuff." At this point, the guy behind the register says, I really don't have it. I really don't have it. He said, "You got it. Everything that happened just now, I seen last night in my sleep. You had my watch." They said, the guy was like, "I'm so sorry. Thank you for saving my pawn shop. Just give me 1 second. Please don't kill me. That thing is loaded." Which means that if that guy would have took the gamble, Taylor would have shot that gun off and it would have went off because that shotgun was loaded. And he says, here. So panicking because he knows the gun is loaded because he's the owner of the store. He runs over there, goes in the safe, pulls out the same box that Taylor was saying that it was in, that he'd been seeing in his dream all week, and pulls out and give him the watch. And not only does he give him the watch, he says, "You saved my store," and he gives him the $800 back. Taylor will walk out, get in his buddy's car, they leave, and at that point, the vivid dream came to reality, came to an end. The plot twist on this vivid dream today is so good that they actually made a video of this story a long time ago. So, this story is about a guy who's chased a woman in his dream. He sees his dream girl every night. But this nightly dream would become a reality chase in real life. In 1984, Steven was one of those geeky type guys, kind of had that nerdy look, really didn't get it good with the women in his past or nothing like that, so he was always afraid to talk to females. But every night he'd go to sleep, he'd have a dream about talking to this dream girl. It was a blonde and she was beautiful, and he would always talk to her. He'll pull up and give her a ride from a bus stop to some house that was in his dream, and then he'll wake up and then he'll go to work and do his regular daily routines and stuff. But then every night he'll go back to his house and get settled for the night, he have more and more of this dream. So on day one, he kind of, you know, because it was a 5-day thing. Day one, it was more like he had this dream. He was driving. He had an old blue car, like big old school type car, and he was driving. And then he would pull up to a spot and he'd see this girl that needed a ride because the Metro bus had broke down. And he was like, he offered her a ride, which, you know, he had never had the heart in real life to do that. But he offers her a ride, and she talked to him throughout the drive, and she was really nice and cool. And then, of course, like always, he'll get to her house, and then she'll say bye. And he was never afraid to talk. He didn't, you know, he punk out, and then he don't talk to her. That went on for a couple days. Then on like the second to the last day, he had like the same dream, and he'll pick her up and stuff. And this round, she'll say, I'm sorry, I didn't get to get your name. And he'd say, my name is Steven. And then she's like, Steven? Oh, she said, okay, well, I'm Molly. And then he's like, okay, well, nice to meet you, Molly. And then she's like, thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name. And he was like, Stephen Wright. And then she was like, oh, so you're the Mr. Wright I've been looking for my entire life. And then, of course, like always, he'll drop her off, and then he'll wake up because in his dream, he was also still the same guy. So, of course, he was always scared to talk to her. But in his dream, he also knew, you know, like the places he was driving and stuff like that, but he just couldn't really pinpoint that house. He know how it looked and everything, but for some reason, that one day evening, he got the courage to get up and said, you know what? Just to be funny, I'm actually going to take that driving route, because just to see if maybe it was a girl at the bus stop or something, or maybe it's like, you know, maybe it's my calling or something. So he was talking to his coworker at the time. His coworker was like, come on, man. I mean, think about it. He's like, you had the same dream about a girl all this time. Maybe you should really just look into it and see what comes out of it. So Steven would leave work that day and take the same route that he always take in his dream to go home, to see when he passed that bus stop, maybe this girl will be standing at the bus stop and, you know, everything in his dream will come true. But when he put up beside that bus stop, there was no girl and nothing. And he's like, why did I even do this? This is dumb. This was not smart. It's a dream. Why am I even chasing a dream? And I know I shouldn't be. This girl doesn't even exist. I just feel, you know, crazy. Why did I listen to my coworker? So he left and he went home. But this round, when he had the dream that night, it was the same girl, Molly, would get in the car and she would talk to him. This round, she'd tell him a little more details. Like, you know, after I leave, I normally go home and feed my little sister. I got to make lunch for her by a certain time. So I really appreciate that you give me these rides and I don't have to wait on that bus anymore. And, you know, he was like, well, you know, she's like, I wish it was the way I could repay you. He was like, just keep being yourself and keeping that beautiful smile on your face. It makes the world a better place. And she would get out the car and she would look back at him and he'll look at her and you could tell she waiting for him to say something, but as always, he cops out and he didn't say anything. But this round in his dream, he actually was able to see the address of the house. So he went back to work the next day and this guy gave him shit and made fun of him because there was no girl at the bus stop. And he was like, well, you know, it still was worth a try because you never know. And he said, but I mean, you only did it once. Why don't you just try it again? And he's like, no, I'm not going to let myself look dumb again. But he was still having that dream, and when he got off work, he just couldn't help it. So he took that drive and he went through there and he looked at the bus stop, and once again, there was no one there. But for some reason, since he had this address in his head now, he wound up this carriage and he was just like, I came too far. I have to go to this house. So he did. He drove to the house in his dream and he got out of there. He walked up to the front door and then he knocked on it. And right after he knocked on the door, some young girl will answer the door, a blonde that looks kind of similar to how Molly looked. And she'd say, how you doing? I'm Terry. And he'd say, you must be Molly's sister. And then he's like, oh, related to Molly in some type of way. And then she's like, yeah, I am. I'm her sister. Come on in. And she let him in the house and she said, make yourself at home. I got to take a phone call and I'll be right back. So she went over to get the phone, and while she was getting the phone, Steven would walk around the living room looking at pictures and stuff, family pictures and stuff, and he would see pictures of Molly in the photos because, you know, he was like, she looked so beautiful. It's like you could just you know when you see her, she had the look of a model to him, you know? And he's like, I could definitely identify her. But in some pictures it was her and it was another younger girl, and I'm assuming that's the sister that maybe she had to come feed, you know, and stuff, have to make lunch for her. He said, because this sister right here is a little older. She's like close to Molly's age. And Molly would come back over from putting down the phone, and she'd say, hey, she's like, so you friends of Molly? And he said, yeah, I'm friends of Molly. You know, just kind of bumped into her a lot and stuff. Just making small talk, because now he's like, okay, Molly does exist in my dream, which is, you know, he's like, but yeah, he's like, she's so beautiful in these pictures. And she's like, yeah, that's my favorite one right there of the both of us. And she pointed at this picture, and he looked at her and he's like, hold on, you're the young girl in this picture? And she said, mm-hmm, that was me and that was Molly. She's like, I love those days. She really taught me how to ride a bike. Wait, what? I'm lost, you know? And she looked back at him and she said, oh, well, that picture was taken about 8 years before the accident. Then his face sunk. He's like, accident? What accident? And she would say, well, right before Molly got in a bad car accident and she died 8 years ago. Right there, he knew it. He was like, I'm dreaming of riding around with a girl that doesn't even exist because she passed away and she was in my dream. And he didn't want to tell her that, but it really threw him off, so he kind of played it off and just went normal. And she's like, can I get you something to drink? Have a seat on the couch. And she did. She went and got him some tea, and then they sat down, and he's still trying to wrap his head around, like, what was that about then? So Terry died in an accident. She said, mm-hmm. But, you know, it was a long time ago, and I'm really over it and stuff. And by the way, I didn't get your name. And he said, Steven. She's like, oh, nice to meet you, Steven. She's like, Steven what? And she's Steven Wright. And she said, you know what? Right before my sister passed in the hospital, she told me, don't worry, because I'll send Mr. Wright to come look after you. Right there, he told her everything that has happened in his dreams. And a year to that date that he told her everything, them two will get married. And they will also live happily ever after. Just like this story, living happily ever after. To understand the magnitude of this story, first, you need to understand the type of person John is. John is a day-to-day scheduler, where he gets up and he has to live everything by the book, everything crossed to a T. You know, he gets this little board, he hangs it on his refrigerator, he writes down everything he needs to do. He goes to work every day and he comes home. John also could sleep through the night. He never had like no sleep paralysis or anything like that. So for John to actually have a dream was almost slim to none, almost impossible. I mean, not saying that a human can't have a dream, but in John's case, it was a rare thing. He never really had dreams. Well, that was until the 2000s. In 2001, John would go ahead and lock his kids down and put them in bed and tuck them away, and then he'll go downstairs, make sure that all his doors is locked and his back door is locked, all the windows are shut, his cars is locked, and then he'll go upstairs into his room, throw on his pajamas, and go to bed. What started off as a night of sleep, a normal night of sleep, would turn out to not be a normal night of sleep. It'll actually turn out to be a horrible night of sleep, because right around 3 a.m. into his peak of his sleep, he would start having these dreams. The first one started off, he was out front, he was doing nothing, he was just cutting grass, and then boom, the dream went blank. Then it would show a family member at a gas station, and the family member was pumping gas, and then boom, the dream went blank. And this would go on several more times as he just keeps seeing different family members, and then the string would go blank, which was totally unexplainable. He didn't get it, so he thought he was going crazy. He went to see a psychiatrist and did all the types of help he could possibly ask for, but none of it worked. And eventually, over time, those vivid, weird dreams would just stop. So now, mind you, it's in 2001, so a whole year goes past. And John gets up one day, and then that's when he realizes he's looking at TV, and he's seeing on the TV screen his dream. But it wasn't the same characters. It wasn't his family members. This was random people. But it was still happening exactly like his dream. I mean, he stared at the TV shocked. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Every single dream he had was on the TV screen. Not only was it on the TV screen, but now he was also understanding why every time he would see a person, the stream would go blank. And that's because they would die. Not only would they die, but the person he been dreaming about, and this guy that's in his dream, that's apparently making him wake up or knock out of his dreams, was none other than Muhammad, the DC sniper. When he'd wake up, he's seen each part of his dream was each place that the DC sniper had murdered someone. Not only that, but every time he would end his dreams, right before he wakes up, he would see this blue car. Now, mind you, on the news it went out as a white van. So the chances of him knowing that it was going to be a blue car that got caught was just magnitudely outrageous. The dream house. One of those hot summer days. The sun was beaming. It was not too hot, not too cold. It was mild. You could smell the fresh air all outside, and all the grass is nice and cut. The smell of flowers, and just such a beautiful day in this beautiful home. And that's all she could think about. And then reality struck. The alarm went off. It was a dream. So her husband wakes her up and tells her, hey, come on, we gotta go house searching today, because they are looking for a house, but their budget is way lower than this house that she's dreaming about. She'll look at him and say, oh, I gotta look at houses today. And then she'll get up and she stretches. She's looking at him and say, I just had a dream of this really big house, 2 stories, beautiful yard, beautiful white fence, even has a jacuzzi in the room. And he will look back at her and say, all right, now you know we're looking for starter homes, so that sounds like a dream home, but that's way out of our budget. Look on the bright side. We have 15 houses to go see today. And she was like, all right, well, that's good. And then she get up and get herself together. Then they proceed to leave the house. As he driving towards the first house, she would tell him about this house. She keep talking about it and talking about how the kitchen was and stuff. And he's like, come on, let's just focus on the task at hand. So they'll get to this first house, and it's a nice house. It's probably a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. You know, just a nice small house that's fit for her and him, because they had no kids. So she'll go inside and she'll see the house. She'll look at it, and as they walking down the driveway, he'll say, what is it? You don't like it? She's like, it's nice. He's like, are you just saying that? She said, no, it's nice. He's like, let me guess, but it's not the dream house. She's like, it is. I just found the perfect house. I found it in my sleep. And they go see 3 more houses that day. But after they went to see those last couple of houses, they would call it and they pack it up. They would go home, and then they go to sleep for that night. And when she went to sleep, she would have that dream again. And she's back inside of this house. This round, she's in the living room. There's a really big TV. She see a picture deck on the window, and it has the little sitting area. It has a nice dining room. It has this really huge table set, and then it has a sitting room, and she'll see a family room. And then, just like the last time, her alarm will go off. So she get up, and he say, come on, honey, let's go look at some more houses. And again, they go outside, they get in the car, and they go barreling down the road, looking at houses and stuff. We're gonna go see this house and that house and that house. But none of the houses again on day 2 met her expectation. Now, 3 days rolled past, and they've been looking at so many houses at this point that he's kind of getting frustrated, and they're kind of going back and forth in argument and stuff. But every night, you know, they still make up and they'll kiss and they go to sleep. But when she go to sleep, once again, she's at this big house, and there's a swimming pool now, and she's in the backyard, and all types of things that just says like this house is not leaving her sights. So Friday, June 27th, they would leave the house. So as they driving down the road and they talking, he's talking about the other house they seen the other day and stuff. And he's just like going over a couple of houses that they went over and stuff. And right as he's talking, she cuts him off. She says, honey, stop. And he almost come to a halt like he's about to hit something. And she says, look, that's it. That's the house. And he'll look and she's like, that's the house in my dream. Come on, we gotta see it. She didn't even wait for him to park. She popped the door open and she gets out and she starts running up the driveway. And he pulls him driveway. He says, honey, we don't know who house this is. We cannot just be walking to some house. And as they run up the driveway and he's coming after her, trying to tell her to stop, some lady comes to the door and she opens it and she says, can I help you? And she said, I just need to see this house. This house is beautiful. She said, well, you're in luck because this house actually just landed on the market today. The owner wants to sell it. I'm actually her agent. And she says, see, honey, look, everything like my dream. Let's go see it. We gotta see it. And the husband's like, all right, we can look, but I mean, it's out of our budget. I mean, I just don't, we're wasting our time and we're gonna miss another appointment. And he complained a little bit, but overall, he still went inside. So they'll go inside of the house and she'll look around and the agent say, well, come in, let me show you. She say, just the living room. And right as she started talking to the real estate agent, you'll see her bust out the way and say, move, come here, honey, come here. Let's go outside. There's a nice pool out back. And as she running towards the backyard, she's going straight down the hallway. The real estate agent would look at the husband and say, has she been here before? And the husband would just look at her and say, and throw his hands up because he's baffled. He's lost for words right now. So as they go out to the backyard and then he started going around, she's like, come this way. Look, there's a jacuzzi here. And then she would start naming different places and taking them there. And the real estate agent, she just like, she must have been here before or something. She's so lost that what's going on right now. But ultimately, she said, we have to put a bid in on this. We have to put a bid in on this. And he says, okay, you know what? We could put an offer in, but she'll never accept our offer. He's like, it's not enough. This is a $500,000 house. And she's like, come on, please, just put it in. So he said, okay. After begging him for a minute, he did. So they went on ahead and put in the offer. And as they stand in the kitchen and they waiting on the real estate agent lady, she goes upstairs to the master bedroom where the owner was present at and says, here's the offer. And as they downstairs in the kitchen talking, Alicia and her husband, they going back and forth and they saying, yeah, well, you know, it'd be a dream if we could get this house and all this stuff. And as they talking, the real estate agent lady, she'll come back down the steps and she'll go into the kitchen and she'll say, congratulations, you just bought yourself a home. And they said, he said, really? He looked, he's so shocked, and he said, what? And they just hugged each other. And she's like, look, honey, we got our dream home. And then right as they doing that, the owner will come downstairs. And the real estate agent will say, look, y'all, here, madam, she said, these are the people that bought your home. And right as she says that, and the owner of the house looks up at Alicia and them, she'll stop and she freezes. She'll say, oh my God, you're the one that's been haunting this house. It was you the whole time. You were here every night. But ultimately, they'll be the new owners of that home. And the only reason they got that home is because every single night in her dream, she'd visit that lady's house. And that lady was believing the entire time her house was haunted by a ghost. And that's why she was so anxious to sell the home. When she met with the other girl, she instantly knew that was the girl that's been hunting her house. And she instantly knew that was the house of her dreams. And this vivid dream is about a house that will no longer be on the market for sale up to this day. Because some people say that the house is haunted. Some people classify it as dreams. But this one account, Charles, I want to tell you exactly all about what happened to his son in this house. So if you guys are into these type of stories, please smash the notification bell as I am new to this. And subscribe to my channel because it really helps my channel. Alright y'all, let's get into this vivid dream. Charles was this big outdoorsman. He was a working hard type person. He always went to work on time, was very bad at book, and always throughout the course of his day did everything out of book. But he always loved it, getting off work enjoying wilderness, cooking out, drinking beer, and just having a really good time with his son, Michael. But unfortunately, in this story, things would take a turn to the worst because Charles decides that after a while, he kind of got used to his area he was in, so he decided to move, and he finally got his career where he wanted it to be. So he said, I think it's time to do like more of a family thing, and he went out and met a woman, and he would start dating, and Margaret and him would go to get married, and then they would buy this home that's up in Ohio, in a nice wilderness, sitting up near mountains, and there's good trees around, and good illumination from the moonlight coming into the house. So it was everything he imagined, plus more. When Charles went out to look for this house in Ohio, he found this house, and he was like, it's really huge, has several rooms and a couple bathrooms, has a nice kitchen and everything. But the thing was, it always struck him weird, like, why is it so cheap? But overall, his wife said, well, you know what? If we ain't got to put much money into the house, then we can put more money into the house. So let's buy this house and let's just fix it up. I mean, we can use all the rest of the money to fix it up because we got this house at such a good discount. And Charles, after a while, he's like, you know what? I do like the wilderness and stuff, so I guess this would work. So he went on ahead and just went through with the purchase, even though he still had his little signs of doubts. It's like, if this house is on the market and it's this big and it's still, why isn't anyone else buying it? So he'll move, and then they get settled in, and he gets his little job and stuff transferred out there, and pretty much they, start living that normal life and stuff. But Michael, which is Charles' son, will always come in his parents' room in the middle of the night and lay in the bed with them and try to go to sleep. And then his father would say, no, you got to go back to your room. It's just a new house. You got to hear. He's talking about hearing things. And he's like, it's just new cracks and stuff. You got to get used to the sounds of a new house. And predominantly his father will put him back in the bed, and then he'll respectfully go back to his room, lay beside his wife Margaret, and them two would go fast to sleep. Through the night, they would hear a loud screaming noise coming from the son's room. And he would pop up, and he would run over to the room, and he would open the door, look in there, and his son was sound asleep. So he kind of had that feeling like something's wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing things, I'm tired. It's the middle of the night. My son was already complaining about he hearing noises and things that's weird, and he can't sleep. So maybe I'm just overloaded. So he just went back to the room and taxed it off as, maybe he thought he heard something and went back to sleep. The next day, when they go downstairs and Charles and Margaret is making breakfast, their son, Michael, will come downstairs and he'll say, Dad, did you see all that last night? And his father would turn and say, what? He's like, it was a loud scratching and screeching noise coming from underneath my bed, and I just couldn't tell what it was, so I just balled up in the sheet. And his father said, well, you go in there. When I went in the room and checked on you, you were fast asleep, and it seemed like you was perfectly fine. He said, I did hear some type of noise, but it didn't sound like no screeching sound or anything. And the son said, Dad, I'm scared of my room. There's something wrong. And he says, well, let's just give it a few days and let's see how it is. And, he did the typical, let me talk some comfort into him. And he did. He talked some comfort into his son. His son kind of understood. And he's like, okay, well, you know what, Dad? And that's fine. And they went on out the day. Later that night, he would get up, walk into his hallway, go into his son's room, just to randomly check on him. And everything was fine. But as he's walking back and he turns around and closes his son's door and he's walking back up the hallway toward his room, he will hear the loudest yelling noise come from his son's room that he had just left from. So he turned around, he darted back towards his son's room, he will open his son's room door, and right as he opened his son's room door, he see his son is already sitting up out of the bed, and he's just balled up and he's sitting there and he's looking. And his son is looking like, Dad, there's something in this house. He said he heard a screeching sound, and there was some type of monster that came from under his bed. He really couldn't tell what kind of monster it was, or if it was even some type of certain kind of monster, because I don't think monsters come with a certain kind. So his father's kind of looking at him, but mind you, he's young, and his father's all confused, but he could tell his son definitely something happened, because his son is pouring his sweat, and he's frantic looking. He's shocked, like he's seen something. But he was sitting in the room with his son and said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay here with you, and I'm going to let you go back to sleep, and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to monitor you. Now, when he sat there, he said his son will go back to sleep. And as his son was sleeping, he would see his son shaking and screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs. And he said it just didn't seem right. So he pushed his son real hard and woke his son up. And his son would pop up and say, "Dad, did you see it this round? It's under the bed. It's a monster that's under my bed." And he said, well, I didn't see anything and you were asleep. And I've been sitting here the entire time. I never left your bedside. And that's when it dawned on him. Whatever it is, that noise that he heard the other night, he must have been asleep too. And whatever it is the son is seeing under his bed, it's happening in his son's sleep. So there's something about this house affiliated with sleep. But ultimately, the next day would go past and he would finally get up and go to work and, really get out there now. He's in the grocery store and he meets a neighbor and the guy says, "I haven't seen you around here before." He says, "Yeah, well, I live in the house that's down such and such, and I'm just going to use a fake address because I don't want to disclose the actual location because I don't need nobody getting hurt or nothing like that. But let's just use 7905, okay?" And he said, "That house has been vacant for years." He said, "How could you possibly live in that house?" And then the father would say, "What do you mean?" He said, "After all that's happened in that house, a whole entire family murdered in that house, and people say that the family still hunts people that lives there." And the father's just, he's trying to soak in all this information and he's putting two and two together of what his son was saying and stuff and what is going on. He said, "So is it like somebody that's actually in that house?" He said, "I've never had no problems." Of course, he's trying to cover his tracks and he says he never had no problems out of that house stuff. But in his mind, he is like, "Oh my God, when I get to that house, we are gone." And he did. When he got to that house, he would pack his family up and say, "We're out of here." And meanwhile, when he left, a couple paranormal people and investigators would talk to the son and stuff and try to get a good sketch of how this guy looks. But when he asked the father to give him the sketch, to ask his son to sketch how this thing looks that he's seeing in his sleep, it shocked the father because the detective said, "Good, I need to compare this with the other pictures." And then the father looked at the son looked at the father, and he's like, looked at the detective and said, "What other pictures?" He said, "This has been going on for years. This house has been sold over and over and over. And each time it's always the children's room. A monster's under the bed. And people started going crazy. And one time this person said he seen somebody through a window. And it's just a lot of weird things been occurring with this house. And honestly, the house was supposed to have been off the market, but they sold it to you, and now you're telling me that you're going through the same situation in your son. So I just want to get a good picture of him." And when the son drew this sketch, it fell right in line with all the rest of the sketches. Here's a sketch of what Charles believed his son has been seen under the bed. In order to understand this story, you need to understand what type of guy that William was. William was more of a hardworking type guy, outdoorsman, very good in sports, always like to do stuff that's interactive, and also a very, very good professional bike rider. And him and his friends would get out and ride miles and miles every Sunday until, it gets cold out, and then they kind of chill, and then they go back around, and he goes back to working hard and doing other things, and he goes skiing and stuff. But every summer he'll go back out, and him and his buddies would get together and they'd go bike riding. That's kind of where this dream starts, is actually with him going bike riding. And then all he could remember after bike riding was going into this trance in this dream. But in this dream, he would state from his mouth exactly how the dream played out. Here's how the dream played out. He says he can remember being asleep when things would start getting dark, and it gets really dark, and I'm guessing that's because he was asleep, but he would say that he'll get some type of redness in his dream, like the going from sleeping in this all black to sleeping and now it's all red. And he can assume that maybe, like, I guess in his dream it's some big spotlight that's sitting over his eyes, or you know how it is when you close your eyes and you see the light that's flashing in and it gives you that red look. If you just close your eyes and look at a light, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And he said that's how his dream would start off. Then, as he's in his dream and he can't wake himself up, he's trying his best to get out of this dream. And he says in this dream, he could feel like somebody is like writing on him. Or like maybe it's some type of ink pen or something. And he said then that felt all weird and he still couldn't move and he couldn't get up and he was stuck in this dream and he was trying his best to get up. And he said as he was still trying to get up and stuff, he could hear voices and people talking, but he couldn't understand all the words that the people were saying because he couldn't make out half of the phrases and terminology that the people around him were using in his dream. And he said, but before he knew it, he would hear somebody say, okay, start. And then they asked for a specific item. And then when he got that specific item, he said all he could feel was something just tearing across his chest right down the middle of it. And he said it felt like a burning sensation, like somebody almost took a knife and just stabbed in and just went straight down the middle. And then he said in his dream he couldn't bear the pain, but for some reason he was stuck in this trance where he couldn't move and he couldn't get up. And then he said after that he would hear him saying something, and then he hear, I guess, some other item noises in the background. He said he hear some metal things and clinking sounds and stuff. And then he said all of a sudden he would just feel this hard pain, like someone's just digging inside of his chest and feeling around with his insides, and it feel like people pulling stuff and tugging on the inside of his body, not on the outside layer of skin, but like internally in his body, like pulling and digging around. And then he said he started feeling some type of cut lines and stuff, like somebody taking a knife and going right across his jaw right here. And he said he couldn't do nothing but feel it, and he said he felt 100% of the pain in his dream, and there's nothing he could do. He's just sitting there, he's stuck in it. And then he said he would hear somebody say another item. And when they asked for this other item, he said all he could think was, before this next item comes, I need to wake up. I need to get out of this sleep. Maybe if I die in my sleep, or what if you know, this next item feels even worse than the first couple items, because nothing this person's saying in my dream make any sense. I don't understand the terminology and I don't know what's going on, but every time they say something, it's just getting worse and worse and more painful. And as the doctor just asked for some other item or whatever that was, and the guy would hand it to him, all he said he could feel was something just stabbing through his chest and stabbing back out the other side. And they would say again, and then it would stab him in the chest, and something would stab him out the other side, and then something would stab him in the chest, and something would stab him out the other side. And then he said before he knew it, he was in so much pain, but he couldn't talk. He couldn't do anything. In fact, he couldn't even open his eyes. He could just hear and he could just feel the pain, as if someone is just stabbing, and you feel a cutting, and you feel people drawing on you lines and I mean all sorts of stuff. And then before you know it, he would eventually break out of this trance just enough, because of the pain was so excruciating, that he actually was able to open his eyes just a little bit. But for some reason his eyes were still being held down, but he was opening them just enough to wake up and look around. And then that's when it dawned on him. But before I get into that, let's go back to the start so you can actually understand what had happened. In the beginning, he would go out, he would call his buddies, they would go bike riding. And the bike riding was very successful, because that was kind of the last thing he could remember before this whole dream thing happened. And as he was riding, a tractor trailer would come down and T-bone him on the bike, where he come falling off the bike onto the ground. And when he hit the ground, he went into that dream. But that wasn't a dream. Here's the truth of what he felt. Once he had got hit by that bike, he would have felt people picking him up, running him into an ambulance, and then he would feel the driving. And as he's driving, they evaluating him and stuff, and they putting the little pre-game lines on him, which would be the lines he felt. And then all of a sudden, he would go into this emergency room, and they take him straight to the back, because he has all this stuff wrong with him from getting hit by the truck. And then the doctors would go in there, and they would start working and, you know, getting things set up, and the nurses would come in, and then a team of doctors would be in there, and everybody's playing their specific roles. But somewhere along the line, and all the complications because of all the stuff that had occurred with him, someone put him to sleep. They checked him, but they never put anesthetic, and he felt every single ounce of the pain. When he said he felt the line going down the middle of his chest, he felt the doctors drawing the line out exactly down the middle of his chest, between the chest. And then he said right after he felt that line, he asked the doctor, he said he would hear something say, "Hand me this." That was the doctor he could hear, because he wasn't asleep. He was not fully asleep because of the pain. They didn't give him no type of pain medicine. They put him to sleep, and then they just started working. And now he could feel everything, and it woke him up. But he could barely open his eyes, and he thought he was stuck in some type of sleeping trance, because when the doctors that did this set up for the surgery, they would put tape over his eyes that would tape his eyes down shut. Once his eyes was taped, he would hear the doctor say, "Hand me that such and such." What he asked for was, the doctor would say, "Hand me the scalpel." The scalpel is a cutting tool that he felt, which he said he felt like somebody was digging his chest, as the doctor took the scalpel and started splitting right down the center of his chest. And then he said he would feel like somebody's reaching all inside of him. That would be the doctor reaching in his body, trying to find the broken bones and stuff that they had already seen on the x-ray. Then he said he'd feel cutting lines going across his face. That was the doctors actually putting an incision right here to fix his jawbone that had got hurt during the accident. And through all this pain, he said all he could remember was trying his best to move, and he couldn't move, and he couldn't barely open his eyes. And then he said when he heard that other part, and he said the doctor said, "Hand me this," what the doctor was asking was to hand him the stuff to stitch him up. So when he felt all the pain of the needle just going straight through his chest and straight out the other side, and they take it back straight through his chest and straight the other side, all the way up the split they made until it was 100% closed. Then when he felt that pain, he was able to crack his eyes, but he couldn't open them because the tape was down. And that's when the doctors realized it. We made a terrible, terrible mistake. He is woke. He's been woke. And now we all could face getting in trouble because we didn't follow the proper procedures and we didn't put him to sleep. So one of the other doctors said, well, while he's still halfway out of it, let's just do this. And what they did was they gave him some shot or some needle that when he went home, he completely forgot, but he kept having these dreams every single night until one day the truth would come out, because one of the doctors just couldn't hold it in anymore. And he'd go tell him, "Look, I'm so sorry. We did not put you to sleep, and we will take full responsibility for what happened." And once that occurred, the doctor told him about everything. Then he understood why he kept having those dreams every night still. And the doctors would further find out that the only reason his family members also would get involved, and they all find out the shot that they gave him when they sent them home was an amnesia shot. So they was giving him amnesia, hoping that he never remembered what happened and they all can keep their jobs. And Charles would say, as he was having these dreams, that he just felt pain, and he kept saying, something's going on, everything's happening in my dream, I'm starting to feel every day. But he did not know that he was under this amnesia until the doctors confessed. One of the doctors confessed, and then they ran some tests, and they found out that he gave him an amnesia drug, and all of those doctors will be terminated. And the family will get an undisclosed amount of money under a lawsuit to the hospital. In this story, Diana and Stephen will give birth to a little girl, Amy, that they so adored and they loved, and they always, play with her and pick her up and, really give her like the attention she needed as a young woman, a little girl. So as time would pass, and this little girl would start to get older, they would start noticing weird stuff, like when she had her, food, she would take her stuff and stack her food into a pyramid, and then she would just sit in front of it, and then she would just take her knife and start stabbing into it, and then they say, hey, calm down, stop, what are you doing? Which is a plastic knife, she's still a little girl at the time, so, her parents started really kind of looking into her mental state. But, sometimes she'll go back to normal, act normal, play and have fun, and do stuff that regular kids do. But every year she gets older, she just get more and more weird, kind of stay to herself and start finding herself in a really dark place. And before you know it, she was isolating herself from everyone. She just stay in this room, and every time she have dreams and stuff, and she's still a little girl at the time, every time she have dreams and stuff, she'll come out the room and she'll just say, "Mommy, I'm sorry about what happened to all the kids at the park today," because the mother was a teacher. And she'd say, "What?" And then she's like, "I'm sorry." And then she'd just go back in the room. Her mother would go to work that day, and when she get there, she take the kids out to recess. All of the kids would just start getting head hurting and headaches, and the parents and the other teachers and staff is kind of running around trying to help each student. And she'll go home and she just think, my daughter told me this before I left the house. And then she'll go home and her daughter again wants to be in the room in the dark place as always, and she sits on this bed and she kind of thinks to herself, and she really isolated herself at the time because she's starting to become, as she got older, noticing that she was a menace to society. She was not good for society. She knew this, and there was nothing she could really do about it. So she kind of started isolating herself even more and more. She even had a few times when she thought about committing suicide, but she wouldn't. And as time goes on and stuff, she'll just come back out the room at night in the middle of the night and go, as she sleeps, she'll come out of the room and say, "Mommy, I'm so sorry about Uncle." And then she's like, "What about my brother?" She's like, "I'm so sorry." And then she just walked back in the room. And when she walked back in the room, later on, about an hour later, she get a phone call that her brother was in this tragic accident and he didn't make it. He was rushed to a hospital and pronounced dead. At this point, the mother and the father, they're going bizarre. They trying to figure out what's going on with my child. They take the child to see different doctors and stuff. And she knew it, and she said, "I'm sorry, Mommy, I just can't stop doing it." And eventually, she start hallucinating in the daytime while she's woke, and she thought, she thought killing herself, and she couldn't live with herself. But things will only get worse because as time went on, she would tell her parents again in the middle of the night, "I'm so sorry, we shouldn't go to the beach tomorrow." And the mother said, "Why shouldn't we go to the beach?" She said, "Because Auntie is going to drown and it's going to be bad, and she's going to be so far out in the water, can't no one save her." So she said, "Okay, this has got to stop. Stop these myths. Okay, I understand there's a couple things get you, but that is not going to happen. We're going to go out and have a good time as a family. I really need you just to keep your head on straight." And the daughter said, "I'm trying, but I'm sorry. I seen it in my sleep. It was in my dream." And the next day, they would go to the beach and everything's going all good, and they cooking on the grill and talking and laughing. And as Amy is still sitting on the beach, but she's at a table off to the side, and she's just sitting there and she's rocking, and she's just keeping this little, weird zone look on, she's just waiting for it. And when the mother would look over at her and at Amy, and Amy would look back at the mother, and the mother would just shake her head in disappointment, I just really wish my child would be the same little cute baby that I held, the little girl that I played with. But it never happened that way because she just turned out to be this weird, vivid dream having child. And eventually, every time she has these dreams, they just come true. So as they sitting at the cookout and stuff and everything, they would hear a scream come from real far away into the water, and they look, and it's their aunt. Some way, somehow, she got caught by the current, playing around, swimming underwater, and it dragged her way out. And the waves of the current was so bad, she couldn't make it back. So she would fight, and she fighting to get her way back. But unfortunately, she would go underwater and disappear. At this point, the family almost had no choice but to try to disown their child. And they would go to different places, and then all of these doctors would get involved and take a psych reaction wards and all types of stuff that was just to try to get her by. And when they try to do that to Amy, it didn't make things better. It made things worse. Because now she was only allowed to come home on the weekends. They kept her locked in this room, and all she could do in this room is do nothing but just look around. The walls are closed, and she's going crazy now because now she really believes that she's just this crazy person. So it didn't even help. So when she go home on the weekends, her dreams would get even worse. And this when the story takes a turn for the worse, and I would classify it to be one of the saddest things to hear. Amy would go to sleep that night, on the weekend she came home, and she would have this dream of her with a knife in her hand and there's blood all over her clothes, and she's standing up in the room, and then she looked down her clothes, and all of a sudden she thought in her dream she sees her parents' bodies laying on the floor. But the next day she would say, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for what's going to happen to you tonight." And then the parents are terrified, but of course this facility thing that she goes to is closed on the weekends, and it's Saturday, and they have to spend one more night with their child, and they are terrified to be in the house with their own child. And when Amy went to sleep, and they noticed she was sound asleep, they would put a lock on the outside of the door so that she couldn't even get out of the room. Even if she had to use the bathroom, she had to use the bathroom in the room. They put a bucket in there for her. They was just so terrified to be around their own child, their own loving child. And later that night, they would hear something breaking sound that comes from down the hallway, and the parents would pop up. But as they trying to run out the room, they is terrified as the daughter is standing there with a knife in her hand, and then she goes in there and she starts charging towards the parents and running down the hallway. The parents are scared. They have no weapons. They in the middle of the night. They just woke up. They shocked and they backing up. And she'll jump on top of the father and stab him. So now he's defenseless. She stabs him right through the chest. So hits his heart, and his heart bleeds out. And the mother said, "What have you done?" And right as she catches the father and her back is turned, she would feel this knife just come driving straight into her back. And the child would just jump on top of her, and Amy would just start stabbing her. The same loving child that they raised go stabbing her so bad, and you see blood everywhere. It's getting brutal. And then all of a sudden you see her get out, and then she'll go in her room, and she'll wake out of this trance, and she would just break down crying, realizing that she had no control over herself, and her dream just came true. Once this happened and this broke and went viral everywhere, the government did their best to cover it up. So they covered it up and they moved her to an unknown disclosed facility. And up to this day, right now in 2023, she should be the age of 36. So that's gonna do it. If you are into these type of stories, please smash the notification bell so you don't miss any of my 3 or 4 weekly uploads. And I'm new to this. This is only episode 12. So, well, episode 13 actually. So that's gonna do it, guys. Love y'all. I'll see y'all later. Stay tuned for the next Vivid Dream. This young girl was stuck in the world all alone for years. If you are into these type of stories, y'all, welcome to Vivid Dreams episode 13. I'm going to cut to the chase. Let's get into this vivid dream. Viewer discretion is advised. Emily was a young girl growing up, had all her doctor's appointments, very healthy, like to play, do all the regular stuff that people do. And as she got older and stuff, she was always the healthy type, you know. She still did her little jogs and runs and stuff. But overall, one day she started getting really sick. And she started trying to do stuff, but she felt woozy and her head started hurting until eventually she hit bed rest. And then before you knew it, she ended up in a hospital. And when she was in this hospital, all she could say is she just couldn't get herself together. She felt woozy. She kept feeling hot. She felt dizzy until eventually she slipped into a full coma. During the time she was in the coma, she would wake up all of a sudden and look around, and she's the only one in the world. Like, there's nothing around her. Nothing she sees. It's all desert and it's clear, and you know, she just see nothing. Way from afar, she see woods and stuff. So she starts to walk, and she's hiking and stuff, and she's dehydrated. She's walking across the bare desert, and right as she's walking across the desert, she was finally get all the way across to the other side. And after walking miles and drinking creek water and dealing with different wildlife, snakes and stuff, desert, you know. But she kept going, and she kept trying to figure out where's society at, where's life. I can't find nobody anywhere. And then eventually she'll get to this town, and as she's breaking through the brush and the woods and stuff, she'll come up to the back side of this town, and she'll look around. Everything is trash. There's not a person in sight. All the buildings look vacant. It look like these towns haven't been touched in years, decades, centuries. And she was looking around and she's trying to figure out what it is. She clawing through all the junk and stuff. She'll come out the other side of that area and she's like, where am I? And then she'll start walking again and she'll keep hiking and hiking. And she's just looking at all the lost city buildings and stuff all destroyed. There's no wildlife. Like, you see the wildlife is taken over. You see like animals and buildings and trash all over the ground. And eventually she'll make it to what was her loving home. And when she walked up in front of her loving home, she was expecting to see this beautiful house and stuff, but when she walked up, the house was all deteriorated. Looked like no one lived there in years, decades, centuries. So she's trying to figure it out, and she's looking around, and she's just like, what is going on? Where is everybody at? Am I the only one on earth? So she'll leave right there, and she'll keep walking, and then she started going through like a heavy brush and heavy woods and stuff, and at some point she'll feel like something is watching her. Now, meanwhile, in real life, there's some people, they're getting dressed, you know, putting on nice suits and stuff, and, you know, getting ready to have a good time, and, you know, like not really a celebration, but, you know, like just getting formal and nice. And in the real world, as they getting ready, you know, you see the girl, the lady, she's putting on clothes, and then you flip and you see other families and they getting dressed and they getting all ready and stuff, and everybody's want to head out to this big event, this big celebration. And meanwhile, while that's going on, she on the other side of the world in her dream, or should I say in her coma, she's still going through the woods, she's running, she feels like that vibe of something's watching her, and you see all this wildlife, mountain lions and stuff, and there's something following her. But, you know, she's picking up this will to want to live, and she starts trying to run. She just runs for it and stuff until she comes up behind this big vacant property, and then she would go inside of the property and look around, and she walk up to it, she walk around the brush, walk to the front side, she starts to go in and stuff, and she go in there and she look around, she realized everything in here is deteriorated. The room, the walls look all unpainted, and the paint all flaked up, and the drywall is all beat up and stuff. And, you know, as she's walking through this house, she get a real bad sense of something's watching her. It feel like a shadow figure maybe is in the background. And then as she go down the steps inside of this place, and she go into this weird, creepy basement, then she looks up the steps, and she'll see a shadow on the door of a human figure, almost like a spirit or something maybe, because she just came out of that hallway, and she's scared. And meanwhile, in real life, you know, on the other side, people is actually like, you know, getting in their cars now, and they're driving, and they all going to this big celebration and this big event, you know, that people couldn't wait to be at, just because, you know, they just want to get this behind them and feel free and just, you know, go back to life and just, you know, kind of get the ball back rolling. So as she's in her dream, she's just running, and she's trying to figure out, she runs out of this house, and she'll go out, run back, she's hungry, she's losing energy, so she finds some vacant house, and she goes in there, and inside the house she'll find this old refrigerator, she'll open it up, it's spoiled food, like it hasn't been dried out for years and stuff, but she had no choice, and it was her energy, so she pick it up and she eat it and everything. And as she's doing that, she's just running, and she's lost, and then she's finding like it's nighttime, it's creepy, she hearing all types of sounds, and she just really can't hold herself together, she's losing it, you know. And she's just like, for some reason, she finds this willpower. She says, I have to live. And she just keeps running. So eventually it'll start getting dark, and she said the only place she could return to was back home. Now, mind you, in real life, this is probably like people like going down now, they all meeting up, they gathering up in this big, beautiful place, and this guy got his suit on, and he's looking, and then the girl, she's, you know, she's just so devastated, and she's just like, you know, I mean, but she has to live with it, what's going on, and eventually, and then she'll finally just say, forget it, I have no choice but to go back home. And as she's running back home, she's fighting all wildlife, it's animals and stuff, and she just finds this willpower, and she finally makes it back into her house. I mean, this deteriorated, nasty house, and she'll see a light coming from behind her bedroom door, and a cross, and she'll go there, and she'll open up the bedroom door, and this big, bright, blinding light. And meanwhile, in the real world, the people is already gathered at this event now. There's a guy out there, he is spokesman. He's talking and he's telling everybody, you know, there'll be better days and things is gonna be okay. You know, Emily was such a brave person, because the thing is, on that day, this real world, they were getting ready for Emily's funeral. But when Emily walked through that door, she would pop up, and then she'll wake up in real life. And when she woke up, she would sit up and she would look shocked, and she just sit there for a second because she didn't realize, and it's taking her time to register what's going on and stuff. And she'll look around and realize, I'm at my own funeral. She died. The family getting itself together and getting dressed was them all getting ready for her funeral. The drive-in was them driving to the funeral. This big celebration was a celebration of life, because Emily died. And in her death, she came back to life. And she said she was in some other world that was years in the future, and there was no life, humans, and nature has took life back. Nature has taken back over Earth. So a lot of people made fun of her for this, but it's very creditable to say that, you know, the wildlife and all the building stuff we doing in this world, y'all, it's very possible. But if you are into these things and these type of stories and this type of mysterious stuff that happens, then drop a comment and tell me what you guys think happened, because she was in a coma and she woke up and everybody's face was shocked. And then when they looked at her, the husband couldn't register what was going on, the crowd couldn't register what was going on, and then before you knew it, he would run up to her and he'd just hug her. And she'll hug him back and bust out in tears, and then she'll smile because she was happy to be back into the real world, and he would smile because he was happy to have his wife back. So if you guys are into these type of stories, like I said, go ahead and drop a comment, tell me what you think, tell me what you think happened, or tell me, you know, your output or your input in this story. But that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you for watching Vivid Dreams. See y'all.